Some betrayals don't shout, they settle into the stillness like dust, unnoticed until the light shifts just right. It started on a night that should have dissolved into forgettable conversation and soft music. We were at a friend's house in Asheville, one of those late summer evenings where the air sticks to your skin and everyone pretends they're not already thinking about work on Monday. The backyard was strung with uneven rows of warm lights, swaying like distant stars tethered by wire. I remember how Kendra's laugh rang out then, crisp, deliberate, too sharp to be spontaneous. It landed right in the quiet between two songs playing on an old Bluetooth speaker, like she'd timed it.
Of course she had.
She always knew how to perform the moment, how to place herself at the center of every silence. I stood off to the side, holding a glass of something I'd already forgotten the name of, watching the night flicker around her. She was radiant in that rehearsed kind of way, backlit by fairy lights, lips parted like she was mid-scene in a film only she understood.
Then she said it.
Something careless, cruel, not quite loud enough for the group, but just loud enough for me. Greg still thinks I like watching those awful documentaries with him.
Bless him.
It wasn't the words. It was the smile tucked beneath them, the tilt of her chin as she delivered the line. Like it was a joke she'd told before, one that landed better every time. I didn't say anything. I just watched the way the string lights blinked above us, as if unsure whether to keep glowing. That's when Jenna's ridiculous bulldog came waddling between us, oblivious and panting, and in that absurd moment, Kendra locked eyes with me. And I swear I felt my fingers clench, not from anger, not yet, but something colder. Like a realization arriving too late to stop the damage.
I left before the night ended.
No scene, no slammed doors, just a quiet withdrawal. I slipped past wine-slick laughter and half-finished plates, picked up my jacket, and walked out as if I had somewhere better to be, though in truth, I didn't know where to go. I only knew I couldn't stay there. The drive home was soundless. The radio was on, but it was all static in my head. Each streetlight flickered like a skipped heartbeat, and I gripped the wheel like it might dissolve if I loosened my hands. When I stepped inside our house, it felt wrong. The air was still, like it knew something I didn't. I turned on the hallway lamp, and the shadows split across the living room like a fracture. Our framed photos, the ones she always arranged just so, looked back at me like strangers. Then I saw her phone, left casually by the fruit bowl. Her little staging area. Where she tossed mail without reading it, let keys clatter into a dish without a glance. But the phone, that was intentional. It lit up before I even touched it. Like it was waiting. A message previewed on the screen. One line, enough to rearrange the molecules in the room. Still thinking about what you did with your mouth. Might sneak over tomorrow. Can you distract hubby again? There was a drop of sweat that slid down my temple, even in the cool of the house. I didn't unlock the screen. Not yet. I just stood there, phone in hand, heart pounding in the quiet hum of the kitchen. I listened to the refrigerator thrum and to something far louder, the thudding inside my chest that no longer felt like mine. I sat down on the stairs. The phone still glowed faintly in my hand, like a flare from a distant shipwreck. And in that dim hallway, surrounded by the relics of a life I thought I understood, I realized I had crossed an invisible line. There was no going back from what I now knew. Only forward, into the unraveling. It wasn't heartbreak at first, just a quiet kind of knowing, like hearing glass crack beneath your feet before it shatters.
I didn't sleep that night.
I lay in the guest room fully dressed, my eyes fixed on the ceiling, tracing the old water stain near the light fixture like it might spell out something useful. Kendra never came in.
She didn't knock, didn't check on me.
From the living room, I could hear the soft flicker of a screen and worse, her laugh muffled, amused.
Probably texting him. Him. Whoever he was.
The next morning, she came back from wherever she'd vanished to, humming.
Not a guilty hum.
Not even distracted.
Just content.
As if nothing had torn itself open the night before. Her heels tapped against the wood floor with practiced rhythm. She poured juice straight from the carton, then finally noticed me at the kitchen table.
I hadn't moved.
I don't think I'd blinked in 10 minutes.
What's with the face? She asked. Not concerned, annoyed.
Like my silence was an inconvenience.
I held up her phone.
You left this. She looked at it, then at me, and didn't flinch.
You saw something? Her tone was neutral. Clinical, almost.
No scrambling, no apologies.
Just confirmation.
I unlocked the screen and held it toward her, not shaking, not dramatic.
Just steady.
She gave a snort of a laugh.
Oh, that.
She sipped her juice again, unbothered.
Are we really doing this?
You're going to act like the wounded spouse now. I stared at her. My throat dry, my voice quieter than I wanted.
How long?
She tilted her head like a child caught stealing, but too old to care.
Since January. Maybe before. I stopped counting. There was no shame in her voice. Just boredom. Does it matter? She added. Yes. And no.
What difference did numbers make when the foundation was already rotted? What was I to you?
I asked.
The words came out hollow.
She smiled. Not warmly. You were convenient. Until you weren't.
That smile, it was the final blow. Not the affair, not the secrecy, but the ease with which she reduced me. Like I was just a pause in her storyline.
I didn't yell.
I didn't throw anything. I walked past her, up the stairs, into the bedroom we once dreamed in, and sat on the edge of the bed we no longer shared.
And I wept.
Not just for her, but for the man I'd tried to be. For the plans we'd made in ink and now watched dissolve like pencil marks in rain.
She didn't come in.
By the time the sun climbed fully over the trees, I had made a decision. That version of our life, our quiet routines, the staged affection, the pretending, it was over. I couldn't unknow what I knew. I couldn't unsee the message. Couldn't unhear her laughter when she talked about me like a caricature. When she finally knocked on the door around mid-morning, she leaned in the doorway like I was being difficult.
You going to sulk all week? She asked.
We both know it's been over for a while. No, I said, my voice low but clear. You ended it.
She rolled her eyes. I cheated. It happens. People cheat.
Get over it. And just like that, something in me cracked, not broken like glass, but forged like steel. I stood slowly and looked her in the eye.
Pack a bag, I said. She blinked. Excuse me. You heard me.
Take your things and go.
Call him.
See if he still wants you when it's not a secret.
Her mask slipped, just a flicker. Then the venom returned. You don't get to kick me out.
This is my house too.
No, I said. This was our house.
Now it's a memory you don't belong in. She laughed, sharp and ugly. Don't act like you suddenly have a spine.
I stepped closer. My voice was steady. Cold.
You think I didn't notice the way you made fun of me in front of your friends? The way you rolled your eyes like I was a burden you hadn't figured out how to shed.
She looked at me, searching for a weak spot. I didn't give her one.
15 minutes later, I heard the front door shut.
No goodbye. No final slam. Just silence.
The kind of silence that feels earned. Sometimes clarity doesn't strike like lightning, it creeps in like fog, slow and suffocating. After she left, I didn't move for a long while. The house was too quiet, but not in the comforting way. It felt abandoned by truth, by joy, by everything I thought we'd built. I walked through each room slowly, like I was cataloging a life that no longer belonged to me. I touched the back of a chair she used to curl up in, ran my hand along the kitchen counter where she once danced barefoot while flipping pancakes and humming off key. It all felt like someone else's story now, like I'd just woken up in the ruins of a dream I didn't know I was having. Her plants were still near the window, overwatered, wilted, their stems bent toward anything that resembled escape. They looked how I felt, tended to out of habit, but left gasping for something real. I found myself back in the hallway, her phone still resting on the table where I'd left it. I didn't want to pick it up. I wasn't even angry, not then. I was exhausted. But something in me needed the whole picture, not out of masochism, but for closure.
For the truth.
For the version of reality that wasn't filtered through her curated expressions and misdirections. I unlocked it and went back through the messages, all the way to the beginning of the thread with him. His name was Logan. The earliest messages were tame. Harmless, almost, jokes, casual flirts, emojis that meant everything and nothing. But it didn't take long for the tone to change. For things to slip from just friends to something far more deliberate. There was a message from November. She'd lied to me, said she was visiting her sister in Durham. Instead, she was with him, sending him pictures, laughing about how I always believed everything. I sat there, reading it all.
The way they joked about me.
The way he called me Loyal Greg like I was a mascot, a background character in their little production. The way she responded with heart-eyed emojis, how she laughed at my expense like it was sport. And then I saw it, a photo she sent him. One I'd once thought she'd taken for our anniversary.
Black lace. Dim lighting.
A smile that didn't belong to me.
I dropped the phone.
Not out of shock, but out of something deeper. A kind of spiritual nausea. Like my soul had swallowed too much poison at once. I called Marcus. We hadn't talked much since he'd moved to Winston-Salem, life had gotten in the way, but he picked up before the first ring finished. Hey, he said, voice low, like he already knew.
She cheated, I told him. A long pause. Then, Kendra. Yeah. Since last fall.
Maybe longer. He didn't ask for the details. Just said, I've got a spare room. You wanna crash here tonight? I don't remember saying yes. I just remember grabbing a duffel bag, tossing in whatever didn't remind me of her. My laptop, my notebook, the old hoodie she always hated, and locking the door behind me. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like I was leaving home. It felt like I was walking away from a crime scene. When Marcus opened the door, he didn't say anything. Just handed me a cold soda, patted my shoulder, and motioned toward the guest room. The house smelled like something lived in, like real life, not performance. I sat on the edge of the bed and exhaled.
Not relief. Not pain. Just wait.
Later that night, we sat on his porch. Streetlights flickered like tired memories.
He didn't press. He didn't pry.
When he finally asked, "So what now?" I didn't have an answer. "I think I forgot who I was," I said.
He nodded.
People like her count on that. Makes the betrayal easier.
And he was right.
Kendra hadn't just betrayed me, she'd sculpted her betrayal out of my silence.
My patience.
My belief that love meant enduring more than anyone should. I stayed quiet after that. The kind of quiet that rebuilds. You don't realize how much of yourself you gave away until you start picking up what's left. Kendra reached out 2 days later.
A text. Just one sentence.
"So you're really going to play the victim now?"
No apology. No regret.
Just the same weaponized tone she always used, the kind that turned accusation into a shield.
I didn't answer.
Later that night, another message came through. This one longer, more venom wrapped in self-pity. "I gave you years, Greg. And you just walked out like I was nothing. Like you didn't matter either." Still no ownership.
Still no truth.
Just her trying to rewrite the ending, casting herself as the one left behind, abandoned, misunderstood. The next morning, I blocked her number. Not out of anger.
Not even for peace.
Just to stop the rot from spreading. It felt like closing a door on a room that had already burned down. But silence wasn't her strength. Mutual friends started texting soon after, some confused, some nosy. Claire, always one to insert herself, said, "Look, I don't know what happened, but maybe you guys just need a break. Space can help." Space. As if betrayal was a miscommunication. As if it could be solved with a weekend apart and a fresh set of promises. I ignored them all. I didn't need opinions disguised as concern. What I needed was air, unfiltered, untainted by anyone still sitting in her theater. Then came the voicemail. From her mother. Her voice was softer than I remembered, worn down by years of making excuses for Kendra's storms. "Greg, sweetheart. I don't know what's going on, but Kendra's been a mess. She says you left without trying. Without even a conversation. Can you just call me?" I sat with that message for a long time, the phone still in my hand like it weighed more than it should. Eventually, I called her back. "I'm sorry she dragged you into this," I said. "But she didn't tell you the truth.
She cheated.
For almost a year. I have the messages. I didn't walk out, I escaped."
There was a pause.
Then a quiet, brittle sigh. I didn't know."
Most people don't," I said.
And that was the end of that. I didn't need her sympathy. I didn't want a shared grief. I just needed the record set straight, for once.
Weeks passed.
Kendra didn't call again. The messages from friends slowed, then stopped. Whatever version of the story she told, maybe it was wearing thin. Or maybe people were tired of the drama that always followed her like perfume. I stayed at Marcus's place longer than I meant to. Told myself I was just catching my breath, but the truth was simpler. I couldn't bring myself to go back to the house. Even empty, it reeked of her. Her shampoo in the bathroom drain. Her shoes by the door like she'd just stepped out for groceries. Her presence lingered like smoke in the curtains. Hard to see, harder to shake. But eventually, I had to return. There were papers to sign. Boxes to fill. A past to sort through. The front door creaked open like it wasn't sure if it should let me back in. For a moment, everything looked untouched. Then I noticed the wine bottle on the counter, half empty. One of her shoes under the coffee table. A coat draped carelessly over a dining chair. She'd been back. And she hadn't bothered to tell me. In the bedroom, her clothes were scattered, a suitcase halfway packed, a few of my old t-shirts tossed in like afterthoughts. And on the pillow where I used to rest my head, an unsealed envelope.
No note. No explanation. Just photographs. Printed. Glossy. Real.
Her and Logan. Laughing on some beach I didn't recognize. Holding hands in a hotel room mirror. One with her sitting on his lap, eyes closed, lips on his cheek. I stood there, breath shallow, the envelope heavy in my fingers.
It wasn't sadness anymore. It wasn't even shock. It was contempt. Cold and clinical.
This wasn't a slip.
It wasn't a mistake. It was a finale.
She wanted me to see it.
To know. To carry it.
I walked to the kitchen, turned on the garbage disposal, and fed each photo to the blades.
One by one.
Let the performance grind itself into pulp. Then I began packing, only what was mine.
Nothing more. Her things stayed. Her mess. Her story.
When I walked out that door, I didn't look back.
And this time, it didn't hurt.
Not every ending needs a final fight. Sometimes, absence says everything. The divorce was almost quiet. That's what surprised everyone, including the attorney I hired in downtown Raleigh.
There was no contest. No demand for the house.
No attempt to negotiate for support or delay the inevitable. Kendra signed everything electronically and returned the documents within 2 days.
4 signatures. And that was it.
A decade reduced to paperwork and an empty inbox. I'd expected resistance.
A plea, maybe.
Even one last lie to cover the others. But there was nothing. Just her signature, neat and detached. It should have made things easier. Instead, it made everything feel cheaper. Like the entire marriage had been just as transactional for her as its unraveling. Marcus hosted what he called a freedom dinner, a week after the papers cleared. Nothing fancy, just burgers on the grill, some friends who'd stayed after the fallout, and a playlist that didn't pretend to be anything more than nostalgic noise. His girlfriend, Elena, brought a ridiculous trivia game Kendra always hated. And that made me laugh for real.
Not forced, not polite.
The kind of laugh that makes your ribs ache and your shoulders fall from your ears. At one point, Elena raised her glass toward me and said, "To rediscovery. May Greg never fold towels the same way again."
Everyone laughed. Even me.
And that was the moment it hit me. This wasn't just about losing a marriage. It was about shedding a version of myself I didn't need anymore. The version that tiptoed around moods, that apologized for asking for respect, that measured his worth in someone else's attention span. That night, after the last guest left and the laughter faded into the quiet hum of the neighborhood, I stood on Marcus's porch and breathed in the cool, unburdened air.
Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't answer. A minute later, a text followed. "Hope you're proud of yourself.
You always wanted to be the martyr." I stared at the screen for a second.
Then blocked the number.
No anger. No reaction. Just finality. Her words no longer had hooks in me. She was shouting into a void now, and I'd built that silence brick by brick.
And it was peaceful.
Healing doesn't make a sound. It grows in the spaces where pain used to echo. I didn't rush back into life. I let it come slowly, like morning light through a dusty window. The house sold without fanfare.
I didn't keep much. A chair I loved.
A coffee mug with a chip she always complained about. And that old flannel hoodie she called my grandpa sweater. I wore it often now. Not as armor, but as memory, mine, not hers. People asked if I was seeing anyone. Some asked with genuine curiosity, others with that subtle pity people can't quite hide. I told them the truth, I wasn't. Not because I was broken. Not because I was afraid. But because, for the first time in years, I wasn't looking to be someone else's missing piece. I started volunteering, a writing center downtown that helped kids find their voices through stories. I taught them how to build characters, how to write honestly, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. One afternoon, while flipping through an old journal I hadn't opened in years, I found a line I'd written during our first year of marriage. Don't shrink yourself to fit inside someone else's version of love.
It hit harder now.
That earlier version of me, hopeful, eager to please, endlessly forgiving, he didn't fail. He just wasn't built for the quiet war Kendra had waged behind her laughter and lipstick. He was a man who believed in shared burdens.
In showing up. In staying.
Even when staying hurt. Now I was writing again.
Not about her.
Not about betrayal. But about truth. I wrote a letter, not to Kendra, but to myself. To the man I had become after the ashes settled. You didn't lose her. She lost you. She lost a man who would have carried the world just to keep her warm. A man who tried, who listened, who forgave when forgiveness felt like drinking glass. You didn't walk away from love, You walked away from illusion. And when I put the pen down, I realized I wasn't angry anymore.
Not numb, either.
I was honest, for the first time in a long time. Last I heard, Logan moved on. A new woman, new photos, the same recycled captions about soulmates, and finally being seen. Kendra hadn't reached out again. I wouldn't have answered if she did.
Not because I hated her,
but because I'm not the man she thought she could fracture. I've met myself again. And this version, the one who survived the collapse, is no longer available for revision. This whole storm, this quiet disaster, taught me something simple. Love doesn't ask you to vanish.
It doesn't punish patience.
And it never, ever laughs at you in front of a crowd. I didn't rebuild who I used to be, I became someone I'd never been brave enough to meet.